arrived at the monastery just before dusk, on the cusp of October. The air in the mountains already smelled of cold stone and moss, a scent so crisp and ancient it felt ceremonial. My boots touched the old gravel path, crunching louder than expected, like they disturbed something not meant to be stirred. The building stood like a forgotten thought, a towering cluster of weather-worn stones, shuttered windows, and an empty bell tower that loomed like a throat about to sing. Yet silence reigned. That was why I was here. Not to pray. Not to find peace. I came to listen to silence itself. The project had begun with an invitation. An obscure grant, offered by a small university's Department of Anthropology and Solitude Studies. They were curious. What does extended isolation in sacred, disused architecture do to the psyche? Especially when the structure has memory. Layers of human attention once pressed into its walls. Monasteries were the preferred vessels. And so I agreed. 32 nights. Alone in a stone monastery once inhabited by a silent order. No cell reception. No contact with the outside world. Solar battery for minimal power. Cameras inside recording my movements, discreetly. For research. My room was Spartan. A cot, a writing desk, a cast iron stove, 2 candles. The window was sealed shut and framed by deep limestone walls. I liked that. It made the room feel like it had no clear edges, like thought could echo there and fold back in on itself. The first few nights were exactly what I had anticipated. Long hours of observation. Writing. Listening. I read from an old breviary left behind, not because I believed, but because the cadence of Latin comforted me. I tried to mimic the rhythm of monks, waking just before dawn, writing in intervals, breathing. On the 7th night I heard the bell. It rang just once. A deep, clean toll that rolled down the corridor like mist. I had not noticed the rope before. The belfry had long been decommissioned, or so I thought. I searched the entryway the next morning but found no mechanism, no rope, no access to the upper tower at all. I told myself it was an old beam shifting, or an echo of some environmental resonance. But that morning there was also a book on the chapel pew. One I hadn't seen before. It was open to a psalm I did not recognize. The margins were blank, except for a small note in pencil. Stillness remembers. I sat on the pew for an hour. That was the first time I felt watched. I began speaking aloud on the 10th night. Just fragments, unfinished sentences to no one in particular. It was an experiment in sound, or that's how I justified it. The acoustics of the stone were beautiful. My words drifted back to me, hollowed out by space. As if the monastery responded with its own vocabulary. I began to dream more vividly. Always the same dream. I was walking down the cloister corridor, candle in hand, and behind me, barefoot steps followed. Perfectly out of sync, always one breath too late. I never turned. But I always woke with the smell of smoke in my hair, though the stove was cold. The note appeared on the mirror on the 12th night. Written in condensation. Open the chapel floor. I laughed at first. Genuinely. Felt absurd, like a prank from my subconscious. But I couldn't shake it. The chapel's stone floor was worn, but I hadn't noticed anything unusual. Until I began to sweep. There it was, a small, irregular tile, off in texture just barely. A whisper of grout missing. I dug around the edges with a rusted fork. It lifted reluctantly. Beneath it, a hollow. Dust, dead moths, and a small tin box. Inside the box, more notes. Dozens. All written in different hands, but always the same message repeated across pages. Stillness remembers. Do not ask it to forget. That night I slept on the chapel floor. Felt wrong to leave it. I lay with my eyes on the ceiling, which curved like a bowl. And for the first time I heard breathing not my own. Soft, rasping, rhythmic. It stopped the moment I looked toward it. I thought of the monks who once lived here. How many of them might have written those notes, what they tried to contain? Maybe silence wasn't passive. Maybe it absorbed, accumulated. When I opened my journal the next morning, I found I had written in my sleep. The words were mine, but I didn't remember the act. You are not alone here. You never were. I stopped writing after that.